Very, very good morning to all of you, my friends. Welcome back. So, I hope you guys have revised what I have discussed in marginal costing. I hope you guys were able to solve questions on marginal costing. One second, guys. One second. I hope you guys were able to solve questions on marginal costing. So today we are starting with the last part of the syllabus, that is budgetary control. Again, it's a part of management accounting and it assists management in decision making. So without wasting time, let's start with this chapter, budget. Again, when talking about the weightage is 8 to 10 marks, sometimes 12 marks also. Examiner do ask question frequently from this chapter, a very important chapter from examination point of view. Budget and budgetary control. See, there are two terms, budget and budgetary control. Can anyone tell me what is budget? Can anyone tell me what is budget? Okay, very good, Vedai. Very good, Pranav. Anyone having any idea what is budget? There are 27 students over Zoom and many more are joining. So what is budget? Very good, Sanya. Very good, Tampeshwari. Very good, Sabha Shakil. Very good, Ritika. Very good, Ritika. Rest anyone? What is budget? So when talking about budget, it's the management plan. It's a plan of management in quantitative terms. Or we can say these are the estimates, targets, or benchmarks set up by the management. So whatever the management plans in quantitative terms, or we can say whatever the target that are set by the management, we call them as budget. When talking about budgetary control, it's a wider term. It covers budget, comparison with the actual result, and last, fixing responsibility for the loss, if any. So when talking about budgetary control, it's a wider term. What budgetary control covers? It covers budget also. Thereafter, these budgets are compared with the actual results, and if there are any failures or losses, then we fix up the responsibility and do take corrective action. So when talking about budget, what is budget? It's a management plan in quantitative terms, means monetary terms. Now, examiner do ask some theory questions from this chapter, but I'll be covering most of the time the practical part. We'll be discussing various types of budgets. I'll be focusing more on the practical part rather than the theory part. So in today's session, I'll be discussing more on practical part rather than theory. If the time permits, in the coming session, that is the last session, if the time permits, I'll be discussing few theory part related to budget, because there are many numericals and I want you guys to be thorough with the numericals first. So I'll be discussing few questions from the study material. I request you guys to please open your study material. I'll be discussing few questions from study material. So please open your study material. Very good, Karan. Very good, Anuradha. So many students gave their opinion that whether he said that it's an estimate. Pranav said that budget is an estimate of the expenses going to be incurred in the year. So it's not only the expenses, it's the income also, sales also. Srinivas said budget means future cost estimation. Apart from this, future sales estimation also. Sanya said estimation of revenue and expenses. Very good, Sanya. Estimates of receipt and payment. This is what Tambeshwari said. Budget is the standard benchmark set for comparison of actual results. In fact, Ritika. Sabah Shakil, budget is used planning and control the business. Budget is used to plan and control the business. Well said. It's not budget, it's budgetary control, Sabah. Neeru, financial planning for the activities. Very good. Anuradha, budget is a plan that helps manage money. Yes, it is correct. Karan Kumar, budget is a spending plan that outline your income and expenses or other financial goals like saving or debt pay down. Well said, Karan. So without wasting time, I'll be focusing more on the practical part. I'll be discussing few variety of questions. We'll be discussing few variety of questions. So as the chapter progresses, I'll guide you what all questions we'll be discussing. So first and the foremost thing, what we'll be starting with is flexible budget. That is, if we are working at 60% capacity, expenses or income at 70% capacity, what will be the income or expenses at 80% capacity? So I request you guys, okay, so Dilip said estimate of financial operation in a future year. So without wasting time, let's start with the practical question. I request you guys to please open your study material. See, nothing much to discuss as far as concepts is concerned. We have discussed in detail many things that are related to budget. So straight away, we can start with the practical question. It's just a simple mathematics, nothing more than that. I request you guys to please open your study material, giving you 2 minutes time. So see, the first part we'll be discussing is fixed or flexible budget. That is budget on the basis of capacity. When talking about fixed budget, it remains fixed. or fixed. So it is prepared for fixed level of activity. But when talking about flexible budget, it is prepared for various level of activity. So fixed budget, there are hardly any questions. So we'll be starting directly with the flexible budget. Said when talking about flexible budget, what is flexible budget? Very simple, guys, that let's say we are working at 60% capacity. So what will be the cost or income at 70%, 80%, 50%, 40%, or 100% of capacity? Very good, Amit Bishwas, and good morning, Ankit Mishra. No worries, Srinivas, that's okay. So let me take out illustrations. So we'll be starting with illustration number 1 that is related to flexible budget. So let's start with illustration number 1, flexible budget. The page number is 15.23. So a factory which expects to operate 7,000 hours, that is at 70% level of activity, furnishes the details of the expenses as under. So there is a factory which is operating at 7,000 hours, and at 70% level of activity, it furnishes the details as the variable expenses are 1,260, semi-variable expenses are 1,200, and fixed expenses are 1,800. Further, the additional information is given that the semi-variable expenses go up by 10% between 85 and 95 activity, and by 20% above 95% activity. You are required to prepare flexible budget at 80%, 90%, and 100% activity. So herein, as I said, flexible budget mein kya hota hai? Very simple. A particular capacity is given. Let's say 70% capacity is given, and we have to prepare budget at 80%, 90%, 60%, or 100% of capacity. As far as fixed budget is concerned, again, it does not calculate the cost or income at various level of activity. It just calculates at fixed level of activity. So let's start with illustration number 1. So we have to prepare a budget, flexible budget. The first column will be the particulars. Now, 70% capacity is already given in the question, and we are required to prepare budget for 80, 90, and 100% activity. So 70% capacity is given, and we are required to prepare budget for 80, 90, and 100% of activity. At 70% of the capacity, the hours are given 7,000. At 70% of capacity, the hours are given, that is 7,000. The variable expenses are given. Semi-variable expenses are given. And fixed expenses are given. At 70% capacity, it is given 1,260, 1,200, and 1,800. So this much data is given in the question. That is, at 70% capacity, the total hours worked are 7,000. The variable expenses are given, semi-variable and fixed expenses are given. And the question is asking us to prepare budget at 80, 90, and 100. So let's start with hours first. See, at 70% capacity, it is 7,000 hours. So at 80% capacity, it will be 8,000 hours. At 90% capacity, it will be 9,000 hours. And at 100% capacity, it will be 10,000 hours. Further, as I said, when talking about variable expenses, I've already discussed. When talking about variable expenses, I've already discussed in detail in marginal costing. The variable cost changes according to production or activity. What is variable expenses? Expenses that changes according to production or activity. So see guys, at 70%, my variable expenses are 1760. At 70% capacity, my variable expenses are 1260. So how much will be at 80% capacity? So see, I'm just writing the calculation also for your reference. So when talking about variable expenses at 80% capacity, how we will calculate? 1260 are at 70. So how much will be at 80? So divided by 70 into 80. This will be 1440. So at 80% capacity, my variable cost will be 1440. At 90, it will be 1620. And at 100%, it will be 1800. Now, when talking about semi-variable expenses, see, semi-variable, the name itself says that they are partially variable, partially fixed. So always remember, as far as semi-variable expenses is concerned, some information will be given in the question regarding the change. So always follow the instructions given in the question as regards the fixed part or variable part. So when talking about semi-variable, guys, for all the question, follow the instructions given in question. Follow the instructions that are given in the question. So here in the questions, it says that when talking about semi-variable expenses, it will go up by 10% between 85 and 95. So at 85 and 95, it will go up by 10%. It means for 80%, there will be no change. So 1200 will remain constant. There will be no change at 80%, but between 85 and 95, it will go up by how much percent? It will go up by 10%. So at 85 and 95, between 85 and 95, it is 90. So it will go up by 10%. So this will be 1320. That is 1200 plus 10%. And further, above 95%, it will go up by 20%. So this will be 1440. So I hope this part is clear to all. Very good, Neeru. Very good, Vedai. Very good, everyone. Now, the last part is fixed expenses or fixed cost. Very important. When talking about fixed cost, I have already discussed this part also in marginal costing, that it will remain fixed irrespective of production. It will remain fixed irrespective of production. Fixed expenses will remain fixed irrespective of production or activity for this question. But one very important point, guys, that fixed cost will or fixed expenses will always be calculated at normal capacity. This is the key point. Very important, guys. Do make a note of it that fixed cost is always calculated at normal capacity. In short, given capacity. So, herein in this question, one second, Anuradha. One point, guys, very important. When talking about fixed expenses, it will remain fixed irrespective of production or activity. But कौन से fixed expenses लेने, very important. The fixed expenses that are given at normal capacity, or we can say the given capacity. So in this question, the given capacity is at 70%. So in short, जो भी 70% पे fixed expenses थे वो सबके अंदर fixed ही रहेंगे. So this 1800 will remain same at all the levels. What many students do, they calculate fixed expenses at 100% and they keep it constant at all the level. It's not like that. Always remember, this point is the key. Fixed cost or fixed expenses are always calculated at normal capacity, or we can say the given capacity in the question. So 1800 is the given capacity in the question. So 1800 will remain constant at 80% also, 90% also, and 100% also. So this is a very basic question. If you guys have any doubts now, you guys can please post. So Anuradha sir, please explain the semi-variable calculation once again. So Anuradha, see, between 85 to 95, it's going to increase by 10%. So there will be no change in 80%, it will remain constant. But at 90%, it is given, what it is given, that 85 से लेके 95 के बीच में the semi-variable expenses will increase by 10%. So at 90%, how it will be? 1200 plus 10%. So that is 1320. Again, once the activity level goes above 95%, once the activity level goes above 95%, it will increase by 20%. So at 100%, that is, it is above 95%. So it will increase by 20%. So 1200 plus 20%, this will be 1440. Yes, no, Tambeshwari, see, fixed for all the level, but always remember, कई बार question में क्या given होता है, per unit given होता है. That is that my fixed cost is ₹5 per unit. So 5 per unit किससे multiply करना है? With the normal capacity or the given capacity. Always remember this, that fixed expenses, most of the time examination में mistake यही होता है in calculation of fixed expenses. So do make a note of it. Fixed expenses are always calculated at normal capacity or given capacity. So this is done. Let's take the total. If you guys have any doubts or queries in this calculation or in the sum, you guys can please post your queries. Further, I request you guys to please copy this explanation. This part is important. Very good, Ankit. Your answers are correct. Anyone else with any doubts or queries, guys? We can say, but again, when talking about what quantity to multiply, Srinivas, we have to multiply with the normal capacity or the current capacity. Ambeshwari, normal capacity will always be given in the question. Let's start with the next question for better understanding of flexible budget. So I'm discussing illustration number 2 from the study material. So I'm discussing illustration number 2 from the study material. So a department of a company X attains sales of 6 lakh at 80% of its normal capacity. So the sales is 6 lakh at 80% of its normal capacity, and its expenses are given below, wherein administration costs are given, general expenses are given, depreciation is given, rates and taxes are given. Further, selling costs are also given, that is salaries 8% of sales, traveling expenses 2% of sales, sales of fixed expenses 1% of the sales, general expenses are 1% of the sales. Further, the distribution cost is given, that is wages, rent and other expenses. You are required to prepare the flexible administration, selling and distribution cost budget operating at 90%, 100% and 110% of the normal capacity. So let's start with this question. The information is given as regards 80% and the sales of that period is 6 lakh. %80 is given in the question. We have to prepare for 90, 100 and 110. At 80% capacity, the sales is given, that is 6 lakh. So you can easily calculate at 90, 100 and 110% capacity. So 6 lakh is at 80%. So at 100%, it will be 7,50,000. At 90%, it will be 6,75,000. And at 110%, it will be 8,25,000. If you guys have any doubts in this calculation, you guys can please post your queries. Practically, it's not possible, but yes, in rare cases, if they do work overtime, then yes, they can go above their capacity. Very good, Pallavi. So let's start with the administration cost first. So when talking about office salary, it is given 90,000. So it is fixed. It is given 90,000 at 80% capacity. So at 90%, it will remain fixed. That is 90,000, 90,000 and 90,000 at all the levels. Further, general expenses are 2% of the sales. It is 2% of sales. Whatever the sales are, general expenses will be 2% of for the same. So 6 lakh is my sales at 80%. So this will be 12,000. This will be 13,500. This will be 15,000. And this will be 16,500. If you guys have any doubts in this calculation, you guys can please post your queries. Further, the depreciation is given in the question. And since no information, additional information is given, so assume that it will remain fixed 7,500 at all the levels. Further information is given as regards rates and taxes also. Again, it will remain fixed. Very good, Sabha Shakil. Sorry, very good, Pallavi. Sabha, what's the problem? Can you please write it in brief? So we are done with all the administration costs now. So let's calculate the total. Srinivas, since in absence of information, that's why we will assume that it will be constant at all the level, be it even 110% also. Sabha Shakil, sales calculation, see Sabha, 6 lakh is at 80%. So at 90%, it will be how much? 6. So divided by 80 into 90. So this will be 6 lakh 75,000. 6 lakh is at 80. So in short, जो जिसके बराबर रहता है उसको डिनोमिनेटर में रखेंगे, and what we want to calculate, we will keep it in the numerator. So we want to calculate 90, so we will calculate it in numerator. And since 6 lakh is equals to 80, so that's why we have kept it at denominator. So 6 lakh is 80. So how much will be 90? So 6 lakh divided by 80 into 90. If we want to calculate it for 100, so 6 lakh is for 80. How much will be for 100? This will be 7,50,000. I hope, Sabha, your query is resolved. Anything else, Sabha? Again, it's a very easy chapter. Straight away, you have to just, whatever the question is saying, you have to just do it slowly, step by step. That's it. I'll be discussing few tricky questions also. Don't worry. Next is selling cost. All the costs are variable. See, in selling, it is everything is on percentage of sales, salary, travel expenses, sales office expenses, and general expenses. So let's start with salary. It is 8% of sales. So this will be 8%. It will be 48,000. This will be 60,000. This will be 54,000. This will be 66,000. The second one is traveling expenses. It is 2% of sales. The solution is lengthy, but it is very easy. You have to simply calculate and put up in the table. So it is 2%, so it will be 12,000. It will be 15,000. This will be 13,500. And this will be 16,500. Next is sales office expenses and general expenses. It is 1%. So this will be 6,000, 6,750, 7,500, and 8,250. For general expenses also it will be the same. That is 6,000, 6,750, 7,500, and 8,250. So we are done with the selling cost also. This will be 72,000. If you guys have any doubts in this calculation, you guys can please post your query. Very good, Rati Malini. Everyone, very good. Very good, Pallavi. Now let's start with the distribution cost. So wages, it is 15,000. It is given in the question. And no information is given. In general, we do take wages as a variable. But herein it is given straight away. So we will assume it as fixed. You can write it as footnote also. That says no information is given in the question as regards wages. So for this question, we are assuming wages to be fixed. Rent is 1% of sales. So this will be 6,000. And other expenses are 4% of sales. So we are done with the calculation of distribution cost also. So we have total A, total B, and total C. So we can easily calculate the total cost, that is A plus B plus C. That is, the total cost will be 118,250 plus 72,000 plus 45,000. So 235, 250. So this is the way you guys have to solve the question. If you guys have any doubts or queries, you guys can please post your query. Waiting for your queries. No, it's practically not possible because see, here in the administration, selling and distribution costs are given. The production cost is not given. So we can't calculate profit, Srinivas. For calculation of profit, we need production cost also. If you guys have any doubts or queries, you guys can please post your queries. So now let's move towards some practical question. I'll be starting with practical question number 2. So I request you guys to please open your study material again. The practical sums, I'll be discussing practical question number 2, page number 15.75. Can you please elaborate your query, please, Tambeshwari? Can you please post your query in detail, Tambeshwari? Anyone else with any doubts or queries? So let's start with practical question number 2. So during the financial year 21-22, P Limited has produced 60,000 units operating at 50% capacity level. The cost structure at 50% level of the activity is as under, that is direct material, direct wages, variable overhead, direct expenses. Further, factory overheads 25% fixed, selling and distribution overhead 80% variable, and office and administration overheads are 100% fixed. The company anticipates, so selling and office and administration expenses are given. Now it is given that the company estimates that in financial year 22-23, the variable cost will go up by 20% and fixed cost will go up by 15%. The selling price per unit will be increased by 10% to 880. So 880 is the increased price. It is given that the selling price per unit will increase by 10% to 880. So the original selling price will be how much? 800. 880 is the increased price, that is increased by 10%. So the original selling price will be 800 only. Now, calculate the budgeted profit and loss for the financial year 21-22. That is the given data. Further, it is given that prepare an expense budget on marginal cost basis. That is, we have to bifurcate the cost in two parts, that is fixed cost and variable cost for the financial year 22-23 for the company at 50% and 60% level of activity and find out the profit at the respective level. So in short, we have to classify all the expenditures in two parts, that is fixed and variable, because they have given that on marginal cost basis, and we have to calculate the profit. So let's start with this question. Okay, I'll write it. Don't worry, Tambeshwari. Just give me some time. Let me discuss few questions first. So herein we have to first calculate the budgeted profit and loss for 21-22. We are working at 50% capacity and the number of units are 60,000. And the number of units are 50,000. So let's start with the sales. The selling price, as I said, that the increased price is 880. The increased price is 880. Price, sales price 880 after increase by 10%. Therefore, original selling price will be, see, 880 is after increase, it is equals to 110. So how much will be 100? It will be 800. So my sales, so the per unit price is 800. So this will be 4 crores. Now we subtract all the variable cost. We will subtract all the variable costs, that is material, wages, variable overhead, and direct expenses. Direct material, direct wages, direct expenses. Sorry, variable overhead first. So when talking about the per unit price, it is given 300, 100, 160. So this will be 1 crore 50 lakh. This will be 50 lakh. So this will be 30 lakh. Sorry, 1 second, 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 guys. Sorry, it is 60,000. Sorry, guys. It's a mistake from my end. 1 second. At 50% capacity, it is 60,000. I prepared 60% capacity, 50,000. It is 50% capacity, and the number of units are 60,000. Sorry, guys. So this will be 4 crore 80 lakh. Sorry, guys. It was a mistake from my end. Sorry. I by mistake took is at it is 50%, sorry, 60% and 50,000. Sorry. Now factory expenses fixed are 25%. So we will take the variable factory expenses. We'll take the variable factory expenses. See, it is 80. Of this 80, 25% is fixed. So 75% will be variable. See, 80 per unit is given. So 25% is fixed. So rest 75% will be variable. So the variable cost will be 60. So this will be again 36 lakh. Thereafter, variable selling and distribution expenses. It is given that 40 of this, 80% is variable. So 32 is variable. It is given that total it is 40 per unit. Of this, 32 will be variable. So this will be 19 lakh 20,000. And rest office and administration expenses are 100% fixed. So we have done with all the variable cost. So sales minus variable cost, we will get contribution. Sales minus variable cost, we will get contribution, and it comes to 88 lakh 80,000. Then we will take all the fixed cost. When talking about fixed cost, it is given in the question. C, factories, selling and distribution, and office and administration expenses. So factory, selling and distribution. Now see, when talking about fixed expenses, when talking about factory, 25% are fixed. It means rupees 20 per unit is fixed. So 80 into 25%, that is rupees 20 is fixed. Now 20 into my normal capacity, that is 60,000. So this will be 1 lakh, sorry, 12 lakh. For selling and distribution, it is 20% fixed. So 40 into 20%, that is 8 into 60,000. This will be 4,80,000. And administration expenses, they have given it is 20 per unit and it is fixed. So it will be 12 lakh. So my total fixed cost will be 28,80,000. So my profit will be 60 lakh. If you guys have any doubts or queries in this part, you guys can please post your query. Again, the questions are straight. You have to follow the instructions that are given in the question and solve the questions accordingly. If you guys have any doubts in this part, you guys can please post your query, else we'll proceed with the second part. No need to copy. Whatever the doubts you have, you guys can please post your query. See, you have to follow the instructions that are given in the question, Srinivas. If the bifurcation is given as regards factory, administration, selling and distribution, then you have to, again, follow the format of the question. But somewhere, somehow, it is given variable cost and fixed cost, then you have to bifurcate it in variable and fixed. So, whatever the question says, जो भी question का format है, the solution will be presented in the similar way. No need to write. Alternatively, if you want, you can write, but no need to write the fixed cost per unit. Sorry. See, it is 20 into 60,000. I hope, Sabha, your query is resolved. Fixed cost is always calculated at normal capacity, Ajay Surya. Fixed cost is always calculated at normal capacity, that is the given capacity. I hope it is clear, Ajay. See, again, Tambeshwari, read the question carefully. What they are saying, calculate the budgeted profit for 21-22. These changes, that is fixed cost and variable cost, will go up and all. It comes in 22-23. We are required to prepare a budgeted profit. We are required to calculate the budgeted profit for 21-22. See, these changes happen in 22-23, not in 21-22. So right now we are calculating the profit of 21-22. Now we will be calculating the profit of 22-23 at 50% and 60% capacity level. It's not required. Generally, we don't write the fixed cost per unit. Mallu Jadar, sales minus variable cost, we will get contribution. Again, Ajay, I repeat, whatever the given capacity herein in this question, the given capacity is of how many units? 1 second. The given capacity is 50% capacity, and at 50% capacity, we are manufacturing 60,000 units. So this is my given capacity. So let's start with the second part. So at 50% capacity, I'll be preparing, and I want you guys to prepare at 60% capacity. So let's start with this part. At 50% capacity, the number of units are 60,000. So at 60% capacity, the number of units will be 72,000. So let's start now. When talking about selling price, it has increased by 10% and the increased price is 880. So 880 into 60,000. Now next, let's start with variable cost now. Now see in the question it is given that in 22-23, in the year 22-23, the variable cost will go up by 20%. Variable cost per unit will be increased by 20%. So here in my material cost was 300. Now it will be increased by 20%. So 300 plus 20%, that is 360. When talking about wages, before it was 100, now it will be increased by 20%. So this will be 120. Third point, that is my variable overhead. Again, it will be 120. Direct expenses, it is 60. So from 60, if we increase by 20%, it will be 72. Rest, factory and selling will consider separately. So let's calculate the total. Now, next is factory expenses. See, my total factory expenses are 80 per unit into 25% is, sorry, 25% is fixed. So 75% is variable. So 60 is variable. In this, we have to increase it by 20%. So it comes to 72. Next is selling and distribution expenses. Selling and distribution expenses are given 40. Of this, 80% is variable. That is 32. If we increase by 20%, this will be 38.4. This will be 38.4 into 60,000. We are done with the variable cost now. So let's calculate the total variable cost. So we will get the contribution, that is sales minus variable cost. Further, we'll write all the fixed cost also. See, there are three fixed costs, that is factory, selling, and office and admin. Herein, when talking about factory expenses, it is 80 into 25%. 20. Now 20 into 60,000. 80 into 25%. That is 20 into 60,000. In this, we will add up by 15%. So we will get 13,80,000. I'm writing the calculation also for your reference. See, 80 is my total cost into 25%. It is fixed. So we will get 20. 20 into 60,000 units. So it will be 12 lakh. Now this is to be increased by 15%. So this is how I got 13,80,000. Similarly, for selling also, it is 40 into 20%. 40 is what my selling and distribution, 80% is variable, so 20% will be fixed. So 8 into 60,000 plus 15%. So we will get 5,52,000. Again, the calculation I'm writing for the student's reference. What? Further, office and administration, it is 20, and it is to be increased by, it will be again 13,80,000. So we'll get the total fixed cost. So contribution minus fixed cost, we will get profit. We can write it as A and B. So A minus B, we will get contribution. Let's call it as C. If it is D, then C minus D, we will get profit. So sales minus variable cost, we will get contribution. Contribution minus fixed cost, we will get profit. If you guys have any doubts or queries in this calculation, you guys can please post. Yes. Very good, Rati Malini. Yes, Mallu. Yes, Srinivas. Very good, Pallavi. Very good. Anyone having any doubts in this fixed cost calculation? Sabah Shakil, I hope this part is clear to you. See, the total cost is 80 into 25%, we will get 20. 20 into 60,000 units, that is 12 lakh. In this, we have to increase it by 15% to get 13 lakh 80,000. Yes, Sabah, any doubts? So see, now when talking about at 72,000 capacity, this fixed cost will remain unchanged. The per unit cost will remain unchanged. You have to simply copy paste these figures. You have to simply copy paste this figure and you have to multiply it by 72,000 to get this calculation. And when talking about fixed cost, again, it will be not changed. It will be the same at all the levels. So 1380, 5,52,000 and 13,80,000. As I said, fixed cost is always calculated at given capacity or normal capacity. And see here in this question, the given capacity is 50% and 60,000 units. So that's why I have calculated this fixed cost as per 60,000. And it will be same for 72,000 also, 82,000 also, 90,000 also, 1 lakh also, whatever it is. So I repeat again, fixed cost is always calculated at normal capacity or given capacity. Anyone having any doubts or queries, you guys can please post, giving you 2 minutes time to post your query. In the meanwhile, you guys can solve this part also. Giving you 2 minutes time to post your queries. Yes, selling price will remain unchanged. It will be 880 only. And the contribution per unit will be same 782.4. Ankit, any doubts? Ankit Mishra, Amit Bishwas. Very good, Nayan. In short, you have to bifurcate the cost in two parts, Pallavi, that is variable cost and fixed cost, and you have to calculate contribution and profit. Very good, Vedahi. So, guys, let's take a break of 15 minutes. I'll be back after 15 minutes with a very good question on flexible budget only. So, let's take a break of 15 minutes. Admin, sir. Welcome back, my friends. So I hope you guys are thorough with the flexible budget part. Now let's discuss one more question on flexible budget. Very good, Ritika. Very good, Prakriti. Very good, Ratimalini. Very good, Pranav. Vedahi. Very good, everyone. Very good, Ankit. So let's start with practical question number 4. A very good question. (15.77) page number. I request you guys to please pay attention. I'm discussing practical question number 4, a very good question. So ABC Limited is currently operating at 75% of its capacity. In the past 2 years, the level of operations were 55% and 65% respectively. Presently, the production is 75,000 units. So at 75% capacity, we are manufacturing and selling 75,000 units. Now the company is planning for 85% capacity level during 22-23. The cost details at 55, 65, 75% are given in respect of material, labor, factory overhead, selling overhead, and administration overhead. The profit is estimated as 20% on sales. The following increase in costs are expected during the year, wherein material is going to increase by 8%, labor, variable factory overhead, variable selling overhead, fixed factory overhead, fixed selling overhead, and administration overhead. Prepare a flexible budget for the year 22-23 at 85% level of capacity, and also ascertain the profit and contribution. See, the question is asking us to calculate the contribution also. So very simple, guys. We have to distribute the cost in two parts, that is fixed and variable. So let's start with this question. So guys, 55% capacity is given, 65 is given, 75 is given. We have to prepare for 85%. Now, guys, there is a twist in that question. See, at 55, my cost is 11 lakh. So 11 lakh divided by 55 into, if we multiply it by 65, we are getting 13 lakh. It means it is a variable cost. Let's check for 75 also. 13 lakh is on 65. So at 75, it should be how much? 15 lakh. So material cost, straight away we can say that it is changing in proportion to production. At 55%, if it is 11 lakh, then at 65% proportionately, it should be 13 lakh and it is 13 lakh. At 75%, it should be 15 lakh and it is 15 lakh. So at 85%, how much it should be? See, 11 lakh is at 55. So at 85, it should be 17 lakh. And further, it is given in the question that the costs are expected to increase when in terms of material, it is to be increased by 8%. So material cost will be how much now? 18 lakh 36,000. Material cost is changing according to production. Therefore, it is variable cost. So, $11 lakh divided by 55 into 85 into 108%. So this will be 18 lakh 36,000. See, you have to check at 55 also, 65 also, 75 also, that it is variable or not. Now let's start with labor now. See, at 55% capacity is 5,50,000. So at 65, how much it should be? 6,50,000. And at 75, it should be how much? 750. And it is 750. So again, we can say labor cost is also variable. Labor cost is changing according to production. Therefore, it is variable cost. So at 85% capacity, see, 5,50,000 is at 55. So at 85% capacity, how much it will be? Into the increase in labor cost, it is increased by 5%. So into 105. So this will be 8,92,500. If you guys have any doubts till now, you guys can please post your query. Very good, Rati Malini. Now let's start with factory overheads. Very important, guys. See, 3,10,000 at 55. 3,10,000 at 55. So how much should be at 65? 3,63,363. If it is variable. But see, here it is 3,30,000. So my point is, when talking about factory overhead, it is neither fixed nor variable. See, fixed hota to kya hota? It should be 3,10,000 at all the levels. So it is not fixed. When talking about variable factory overheads, it is not variable fully. Reason being, 3,10,000 it is at 55. So at 65 capacity, it should be 3,66,363. But it is not the same. It is 3,30,000. So it shows that it is neither fixed nor variable. It is a semi-variable cost. If you guys have any doubts why it is semi-variable, first let me check if there are any queries. So very important, guys, when talking about factory overhead in this question, it is semi-variable. If you have any doubts in this part, you guys can please post your query that why it is semi-variable. See, factory overhead. See how much it is, 3,10,000 at 55. So how much should be at 65? It should be 366,363. If it is variable, अगर ये variable होता, तो how much should be my cost? 366,363. But here in my cost is 3,30,000. It is not variable. So we can say it is neither fixed, it is nor variable, it is a semi-variable cost. I hope it is clear to all. Anyone having any doubts? Yes, everyone, this point is very important. ये क्वेश्चन एग्जाम में 2 to 3 times आया है, the same question. So Anjali, Bhumika, Dilip, Dinesh, Gurminder, Jayalakshmi, Kasak, Mallu, anyone having any doubts? Sabah Shakil, my question to you, is it variable or not? First answer this query. Nancy, any doubts? Manvi, Pallavi Jha, Pranav, Rati Malini, Ritika, Sanya, Shweta, Saundarya, Tambeshwari, Vedahi. Anyone having any doubts? Ankit Mishra. Sabah Shakil, you tell me, is it variable or not? Yes, Sabah. This cost is not variable. अगर ये variable होता, so the cost at 65 should be 366,363. This is not variable because my cost is given in the question is 3,30,000. So now we have to calculate, we have to break up the cost into fixed and variable. So see, now when I'm coming to this point, Tambeshwari, don't worry. Now see, the cost at 55% capacity, that is 55,000 units, it is 3,10,000. See, at 55,000 units, 3,10,000 rupees. At 65,000 units, it is 3,30,000 units rupees. And at 75% capacity, it is 3,50,000. So we will bifurcate this cost into variable and fixed. Now, how much will be my variable cost? So very simple. When talking about variable cost per unit, we can easily calculate. See, how much is the change in cost? $20,000. How much is the change in cost from 3,30,000 to 3,10,000? The change is of 20,000. And the change in units is how much? 10,000 units. So per unit, how much will be my variable cost? Rupees 2. Very important. When talking about if the semi-variable cost is given and the units are given, we can easily bifurcate into fixed and variable. So how much is the change? How much is the cost increasing? 20,000 is the cost that is increasing. On how many units? 10,000 units. So we can say per unit cost is how much? Rupees 2 as variable cost. So now let's calculate the variable cost. For cross verification, I'll calculate it for 65 also. See, my total cost is 3,10,000 at 55% capacity. Variable cost per unit I have already calculated, that is rupees 2. So at 55% capacity, how many units we are manufacturing? 55,000 units. So 55 into 2, 1,10,000 will be my variable cost, and balance amount will be my fixed cost. See, rupees 2 per unit is what my variable cost per unit. This is what my variable cost per unit. So 55,000 units into 2, 1,10,000 will be my variable cost, and balance amount 3,10,000 minus 1,10,000, 2 lakh will be what my fixed cost. Let's cross verify it at 65% capacity. That is 65,000 units. Again, the answer will be the same. At 65% capacity, how much is my cost? 3,30,000. So variable cost and fixed cost. 65 into 2. 1,00,000. So fixed cost will be how much? 2 lakh. I hope this part is clear to all. See, alternatively, very important guys, alternatively, we can calculate for 65 and 75 also. See, at 65%, at 65,000 units, my cost is 3,30,000. At 75,000 units, my cost is how much? 3,50,000. So again, how much is the change in cost? 20,000. How much is the change in units? 10,000. So we will get the variable cost per unit. So this answer will remain same. So we can say that factory overheads, when talking about factory overheads, how much will be fixed? 2 lakh will be fixed, and balance rupees 2 per unit will be variable. I hope this part is clear to all. So waiting for your queries now. It is rupees 2 per unit. Srinivas. Anyone having any doubts or queries, guys? So you can either take 55, 65 or 65, 75. The answer will be the same. Always it will match. If it doesn't match, then I think there is a problem with your solution, not the question, Tambeshwari. Yes, anyone having any doubts, guys? Waiting for your queries. Yes, Sanya, Ritika, Pranav, Ratimalini, Pallavi, Kasak, Bhaskar, Ajay. Ajay Surya, any doubt? Sabha Shakil, Srinivas, any doubt? So here in the variable cost is rupees 2 per unit. So therefore, at 85% capacity. So we have got the variable cost per unit as rupees 2. So when talking about factory overheads, at 85,000 units, the variable cost will be how much? 2. So this will be 1,70,000. And further, it is given that the variable factory overheads will increase by 5%. So into 105%. So this will be 1,78,500. Anyone having any doubts in this part? The fixed part we have already calculated, that is rupees 2 lakh. I'll be writing this part once we are calculating the fixed cost. Anyone having any doubts? So similar approach we will follow for selling and overheads also. See, 3,20,000 are my selling overhead. 3,20,000 are my selling overhead. Please take your calculators and do calculation. 3,20,000 are my selling overhead at 55 capacity. So at 65 capacity, if it is variable cost, how much it should be? 3,78,181. But is it 3,78,000? No, it is only 3,60,000. So we can say that selling overheads are not variable. And neither it is fixed because it is not constant. So again, selling overheads are also semi-variable. So let's start with, so herein we have taken 55, 65. Let's take 65, 75 for your reference for selling overhead, or we can either take it 55, 65 also. In both the cases, the answer will be correct. So at 55,000 units, how much is the cost? 3,20,000. At 65, how much is the cost? 3,60,000. So again, the change in cost is how much? The change in cost is 40,000 divided by change in units, it is 10,000. So it is rupees 4 per unit. Now we can bifurcate it in two parts, fixed and variable. So for 55,000, that is 55% capacity, 55,000 units. The cost is how much? 3,20,000 rupees. I think this part of boat is visible. So two parts for 3,20,000. When talking about variable cost, it is 4 per unit. So 55,000 into 4. So this will be 2,20,000. And balance amount will be fixed. That is, fixed cost will be 320 is the total cost of this. 220 is variable. So balance how much? 1 lakh will be fixed. If you calculate it at 65 also, it will be same. If you calculate it at 75 also, it will be same. The fixed cost will remain unchanged. So now we have got the variable cost. So at 85,000 units into the variable cost per unit is 4 into how much increase in variable selling overhead? It is by 8%. So it means into 108%. So this will be 3,67,200. So we are done with material. It is fully variable. Labor, it is fully variable. Factory overhead, we have calculated the variable cost. Selling overhead, we have calculated the variable cost. Now let's move toward admin overhead. Now see, what we can see is that all the level at 55, 65, 75, the cost is constant. That is 1,60,000. No change. So we can straight away say that administration overheads are all fixed. So material, variable, labor, variable, factory overhead, semi-variable, selling overhead, semi-variable, and administration overhead fixed. So we are done with the calculation of variable cost. Let's calculate the total variable cost. So this is what my variable cost. Now let's start with fixed cost. See, fixed cost for factory and selling, we have already calculated, and administration, it is given straight away. Factory, selling, and admin. The factory fixed cost is how much? See, we have calculated the factory fixed cost, that is 2 lakh. And it is given in the question that fixed factory overheads are gone up by 10%. So we can say 2 lakh into 110%. So this will be 2,20,000. Selling overhead, the fixed cost is 1 lakh. Into the fixed selling overheads are gone up by 15%. So into 115%. So this will be 1,15,000. And administration overhead, they are saying it has gone up by 10%. So 1,60,000 into 110. So this will be 1,76,000. So this is my total fixed cost. $5,11,000. So my total cost will be how much? Let's call it as A. Let's call it as B. So the total cost will be A plus B. $37,85,200. Further, the question is asking us to calculate the sales. Also, 1 second. It is given in that the profit is estimated at 20% of sales. profit is how much? 20% of sales. So if the sales is 100, profit is 20, then the cost will be 80. So how much will be my sales? Very simple, guys. We can easily calculate sales. That is 3785200 divided by 80%. Since it is given that the profit is 20% on sales, not on cost, it is on sales. So if my sales is 100, my profit will be 20, my cost will be 80. So it's 3785200. The question is also asking us to calculate contribution. So it will be sales minus variable cost. So this is the way you guys have to solve this question. If you guys have any doubts in this part, it's a very important question. If you guys have any doubts in this part, you guys can please post your queries. Yes, Manvi. I request you guys to at least copy this part. This part is very important because I have presented in a very easier way. So I request you guys to please copy this working note. In the meanwhile, whatever the queries you have, you guys can please post your queries. Waiting for your queries, guys, now. Giving you 2 to 3 minutes time to copy everything. I request you guys to please copy this part. In point number 3, point number 4, if you guys have any doubts, you guys can please ask me. No, there will be no change in 75% also. You can calculate Tambeshwari. 75% also, if you are considering at point number 3 and 4, the answer will be the same. The fixed cost will be 1 lakh and 2 lakh, and variable cost per unit will be 2 and 4. The answer will remain unchanged. You can try it on your own. I request you guys to please copy this explanation. It's a very good question. Examiner do ask this question frequently. They do change the figures, but yes, this type of question examiner do ask. Yes, Srinivas. Again, it requires practice, and further again, you should be thorough with the concept. Always remember, Pallavi, that it will be same. Don't worry, or else some information will be given in the question as regards the change. Tambeshwari, as I said, fixed cost is always calculated at normal capacity. You can check any of the question from past RTPs, MTPs. Fixed cost is always taken at normal capacity. Pallavi, some or other hints are given in the question regarding the change. Rest, it will be the same. If Mallu sir, if asked in question contribution per unit, how it calculate? So see here in my contribution is 1457,300. If we divide it by 85,000 unit, we will get the contribution per unit. So 14,57,300 divided by 85,000 unit, we will get the contribution per unit. Kambeshwari, I repeat, fixed cost is always calculated at normal capacity. 100% capacity पे calculate मत कीजिए. It is to be calculated at normal capacity. That is the capacity that is given in the question. Anyone else with any doubts or queries, guys? Everyone? Sabah, Shakil, any doubts? Vedahi, Nancy, Ratimalini, Bhaskar, Pallavi, Ajay, Pranav, Sanya, Srinivas, Prakriti. Anyone having any doubts? Sabah, Shakil, Kambeshwari, any doubts? Srinivas, Ankit Mishra, any doubts? I need to check the question, Amit Biswas. Sales calculation, see, we have calculated the total cost. Okay, now the profit is 20% on sales. So if the sales is 100, how much will be my profit? 20. If the sales is 100, profit will be 20 and the cost will be 80. Now this 80 is equals to 3785200. So it is equals to 80. So how much will be my 100? See, if the production is increasing, then how can you say that the cost will decrease? Whether he variable cost per unit is constant, fixed cost is constant. So the cost is anyways going to increase only whether he. I hope it is clear whether he. Anyone who want to ask me, I mean, I can unmute you also. You can please raise your hand. किसी को कुछ भी पूछना है, you just please raise your hand. I can unmute you also. Last 1 minute for whatever the queries you have. I'll wait for 1 more minute. I request you guys to copy this explanation. This explanation is very important. You need to write all this in the exams or in the solution, in fact. I have calculated the profit also, 946,300, Dinesh. Anyone else? 8 to 12 marks, Manvi. Again, the chapter is very easy. So guys, done with flexible budget. There is one more session on budgetary control wherein I'll be discussing few more practical questions. As far as theory is concerned, if the time permits, I'll try to discuss few theory questions. Rest, I'll be focusing more on the practical part rather than the theory part, because again, examiner do ask practical question on budgetary control. So I'll be focusing more on the practical part, but if the time permits, I'll surely discuss few theory points also. That is zero-based budgeting, advantage, disadvantage, characteristics and all. So try to solve all the questions of flexible budget. See you guys day after tomorrow with the remaining part of the chapter. Thank you so much for your time and patience and for active participation in the session. Take care of yourself. God bless you guys. See you guys day after tomorrow with the last session of this chapter. Yes, sir. Thank you. You too, sir.